Today's webinar, Under the Bonnet, Examining Common Fleet Safety Practice and Sharing Surprise Learnings. Today's webinar is a collaboration between the NRSUP and AFMA. So we're excited, a bit different today. We've got a great panel of experts diving in. But first, a bit of housekeeping as we move through. My name is Jerome Carslake. If you haven't come across me, I'm the Director of the National Road Safety Partnership Program and its many activities. To find out more, please visit the NRSUP website, register for our newsletter, or follow us on our social media, such as our LinkedIn page. So today's webinar is going to go for around 45 minutes, looking around 15 minutes for questions. We are going to be quite relaxed as we go through, because I know we have 4 experts who can talk really well, but also passionate about what they want to do. So we'll roll with it. You will get a link to the webinar afterwards with the PowerPoint, which is pretty small, and recording. So for those of you who haven't used GoTo before, please go into the question function, chuck them in there. We'll be using that. I have it live, ready to go, and we'll take some questions towards the end, unless a few good ones pop in as we go along. So, joining our panelists today, and who do we have? So, we have 4 panelists joining us. Our first up is David Beck. Welcome, David.
Hey.
So David is one of Australia's most respected road safety practitioners with over 2 decades of experience. He's Director of Datum Road Safety. He works with organisations across sectors to design, review, and improve fleet safety systems. You can also see a big bio of all our panellists on the website as well. So joining David, we have Kim. Welcome, Kim.
Hey, Jerome. Thanks for having me.
So Kim brings extensive experience in fleet and road safety from SA Water, the South Australian government-owned corporation responsible for water and wastewater services across the state. SA Water operates a significant fleet that service both metropolitan Adelaide, regional and remote South Australia. So there's going to be a lot of diversity in there. Joining Kim and David, we have Nick. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, Jerome. Hi, online.
Excellent. So Nick works from Hobart with Hydro Tasmania, Australia's largest generator of renewable energy. Hydro Tasmania's operation spans diverse terrain, including highlands, remote asset sites, and regional communities, exposing the drivers to challenging environmental conditions, including alpine weather, isolated roads, and limited connectivity. Nick also recently received the 2026 AFMA Fleet Environment Award. Congrats, Nick.
Thank you.
And we have a case study and webinar in the pipeline on how and why they got the award, which is going to be a great story to say. Our final panelist is Michael. G'day, Michael.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So, Michael Mills is the General Manager of Heavy Vehicle Innovation Advocacy for Fleet Guru, based up on the Gold Coast. He has a career spanning multiple sectors, including road transport, heavy haulage, mobile cranes, mining, and utilities. Michael's mission at Fleet Guru is to improve the safety, efficiency, and reliability of heavy vehicles globally, which is great, so not just Australia, by leveraging AI-driven platforms and technology. Michael's also got quite a few awards to spruik. He is the 2023 AFMA Safety Award, the 2025 AFMA Fleet Manager of the Year, and recently the 2026 Geotab Safety Award in the public sector. So well done, Michael.
Thanks very much, Jerome.
What we're going to do now is get things rolling, and what I'll do is throw across to you, David, as this paper we did to you was really, what was the foundations and what kicked this sort of webinar, this panel off? So over to you.
Okay, thanks, Jerome. So this panel, this webinar came across in conjunction with the thought leadership piece that you have on the screen at the moment, which came about from a project that I was working on late last year for a major financial services provider in Australia that were kind enough to let me share my learnings through this anonymized thought leadership piece. They needed to do fleet renewal, and they were very keen to both protect their workers and also move towards greater sustainability in their vehicle fleet as well. They were very keen that any upgrades that they did would be evidence-based, actually grounded, not nice ideas, but actually proven concepts. And they did have a few ideas that they wanted me to test and challenge. And sometimes the result would counterintuitive to what they wanted, but they were very happy to take all that advice on board because it was grounded in actual literature and also grounded in the real world experiences of their employees. They have employees that cover urban, regional, and rural areas, so they have very different needs throughout those environments, and it was very informative to find out exactly the challenges that each of those groups were having as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that, David. So now we dive on in. The way we've structured this is we've got sort of 4 themes we're going to touch on. So first theme, horses for courses, vehicle selection for different environments, and kind of have better 3 champions. And this to really touch on that point as we heard from their bios. Next thing we're going to go through is from the horse's mouth. So the power of driver consultation. Because I guess how do you make sure you're not just lobbing it into people and making sure, look, is it fit for purpose? Have you spoken with the people out in the field and they're getting their buy-in to use it? Next one is theme 3, reading the form guide. So telematics, apps, technology in practice. So I guess that in practice is a key thing. How does that line up to what they say it can do versus reality? The final thing we're going to talk about is blinkers off. So ADAS, vehicle interfaces, and the future of fleet safety. So what my approach is going to be, I'll draw across, go to David. He'll give us a bit of a context of each of the themes. And then we're going to have quite an interactive discussion with our experts. And even better, I'm going to get rid of this PowerPoint so we can make this as easy as possible. And now you can see everyone. So first of all, theme 1, over to you, David. So let's get the ball sort of rolling. Your reviews show that vehicle selection decisions made in cities often don't capture the full picture of remote driving risk. Can you sort of describe the most striking example of this disconnect from the review that you did?
Yes, that's right. These vehicles were very much primarily used for one context or the other. So they had urban vehicles, regional vehicles, and rural vehicles. And what that meant is you could really isolate the exact requirements for that vehicle, for that road environment. So obviously in an urban environment, you need them to be easily maneuverable. You don't want them to be too aggressive because there's a lot of interactions with other road users. And so you want the vehicles to be as forgiving in design as possible as well. They can be more efficient, so smaller vehicles as well. But once you get into in a rural or even regional environment, that same kind of vehicle isn't going to be fit for purpose. So we even had some cases where, because of historical reasons, some staff members had been allocated urban style vehicles, and now they were driving more on regional or rural routes. And these vehicles were no longer fit for purpose. They were driving on gravel roads quite a bit, and so there were tire blow-ups quite often. And some of the people that experienced this were young females that were then essentially stranded in environments where they may not have even mobile reception. So they were stuck by the side of the road, changing their own tires and basically finding a way to safely extricate themselves as well. Yeah, just another type of example as well would be bull bars is something that is generally significantly discouraged in an urban environment. And in fact, they had that understanding that bull bars are less than ideal. And so they were exploring other opportunities to manage that in regional and rural environments. And that's something I explored, but unfortunately, there are many innovative solutions that are being trialed, but none of them have been proven to be effective. And the consequences of having these people stranded in these environments is far more severe. So it's really about challenging, providing the right vehicle design and technology, and what's required in an urban space may not be appropriate for a regional or rural space.
So Hearing that, David, I reckon, Kim, that just sounds like part of BAU for you in dealing with things like that. So what's your thoughts? How do you guys go about dealing with those sort of complexities?
Look, 100%. Servicing the whole state means, look, we are everything from metro to regional to remote. I think one of the big pieces that comes along with this is the consultation, is talking with the staff and understanding the risk that they're going to be faced in those areas, and really defining what rural and remote means. Because, something that got touched on very much is decisions being made in metro. The definition of regional or remote from a metro point of view can be vastly different to what teams out in those areas actually operate as regional or remote. And they're operating there day in, day out. So having their consultation of what is needed, but also what's the frequency? How often are they going out there? Is this an isolated trip, or are they going out there regularly? Let's fully understand the environment that they're going to be working in. And yeah, look, working through what does that risk profile look like, and how can we consistently address it so everyone going into those areas, has the right vehicle for those trips.
Is it that easy, guys? How do you find it, Nick? Michael, what's your thoughts?
I wish it was that easy. I don't know about you guys. We have an all drive, full drive policy down here. So, we don't know what we're expecting even in the summer months. That's restrictive for some vehicle types and user cases, particularly for EVs. So I think as part of our transition, which we were lucky to be recognised for, we've had to stick with all drive EV options in most cases, and that's been restrictive as to what we can buy. But we always want that extra level of safety just in case. And I think that's how we set up our fleet, is just in case that we're sending people out to unknown conditions, potentially the same technology, drivetrain, the same gear in the vehicle that we fitted aftermarket. That's just standard, whatever they do. And obviously there's different types of vehicles and they've got different purposes, but generally they're all the same in that way. And that's 5-star ANCAP preferably as well. So that's how we do it. It's not perfect, but it seems to work. And drivers aren't very backwards in coming forwards if it's not really working as well, as we all know.
Term fit for purpose has bounced around a bit, Michael, hasn't it?
It does, Jerome, and I think just before I jump to that, I certainly agree with David, Kim, and Nick. This is one to challenge. It's a big one before they get out the gate. For me, it's really balancing that wants first needs. Being really clear on that. We know that exists, and the reality is, in the fleet, as a fleet manager, you're never going to get it right 100% of the time. But you know what? If you can always aim to increase the percentage, that's the goal. Because again, the reality is you're never going to get it right every time, because vehicles will change. A metro vehicle will go urban, go rural, and vice versa. So you can't expect to get it right all the time. Vehicles just can't change specification at a toll bridge. But if we come back to that needs versus wants, and be really clear on some of the things that are negotiable and some of the things that aren't negotiable. And that might be because of payload, it might be because of the conditions, it might be because of an urban environment. There'll be lots of conditions that change. And I think from a consultation point of view, to be really clear on what's in and what's out, but more importantly, what's the why? So why aren't bull bars an option in a metro area? Have the information to back it up. Most people will be able to go to the headpiece around why we don't have bull bars, because of the impact to pedestrians and vulnerable road users. If you're really clear on the why, it tends to make it easier. Certainly not streamlined, but makes it easier. So balance the wants versus needs, be clear on what's in and what's out, and fit for purpose. You're right, it gets thrown around, and for me, it's a token. What's the purpose? The purpose of a vehicle changes. The purpose of any type of mobility will change wherever that trip may be. In a single trip, there might be 4 different purposes. It might be, one is to get from point A to point B. Then I need to carry some equipment. Then I need to park in an underground car park. Then I need to go across a grassy paddock to inspect the pole. The purpose is going to change. So you can't be fit for them all. It's impossible. So we need to be okay with that. and it's about being as close to perfect as we possibly can, because that fit for purpose will change. And I guess the frustrating part there is, Jerome, I think that's the reason you asked me. I do get quite frustrated with this terminology because it's an easy get out of what I need conversation. So I think just to come back to the why, we understand the purpose is going to change. We're going to get you as close as that as we can. We've got some things that we have to, there's some targets, some payload, some efficiency, some serviceability requirements we need. Is this close enough? So I think that fit for purpose might need some tweaking in the future.
Some of the strangest wants that you've had from guys just out of interest. Come on.
Look, I can probably talk to one that it wasn't strange, but it came with a good intention, but not fully thought through. Is that I can remember a manager coming through and going, "Hey, my guys are traveling across the state pretty regularly, and they're having to stop for fuel a lot. Can we put long range tanks in their vehicle?" And then I pushed back and asked the question of going, "Well, when they're stopping to get fuel, is this a fatigue management piece? If we put a long range tank, are they going to continue to stop as often, or are they just going to drive through?" And very quickly turn to, actually, don't put long range tanks in. So, so sometimes they can be looking to address something that they can go, "Oh, here's an efficiency, or here's a safety piece, or here's something that would help us out." But going, actually, this might introduce a new risk rather than actually resolving one. So I think that's where, it comes back to what Michael was sort of saying, what's the want and what's the need? Let's make sure there's a balance, because we can get guys who, I've got to drive across a grassy field and I want every accessory possible thrown on the vehicle, but I'm only going to do it once a year. But then the rest of the time I'm running around Metro. Okay, let's really understand what's the want and what's the need to achieve what the vehicles are going to do.
Jerome, I don't think there is to go back to your question around what are some of the weirdest things. I don't think anything's too weird, because at the time it's really important. We look at, quite commonly around fridges and microwaves in heavy plant, items of heavy plant, and you think, like, even as a slow cooker, I've come across one of those before. May sound crazy to me or to someone sitting in an office, but in the field, when you're there for 8 or 9 hours or 10 hours, I think I'm okay to have a warm lunch or a cold drink. That really plays a part into someone's well-being, and remembering at the end of the day they're going to drive that vehicle back, potentially past someone that we know and love. We want that person well-fed, well-rested, in a good state of mind. If I haven't had anything to eat or drink for the day, that could certainly affect that. So again, it may sound weird to some until you start to think through, put some context around it. It all makes sense. It's a matter of, like Kim said, how often, what's the frequency, what are other alternatives? But I think, that the only risk there is if the first answer is no, it's a tough one. You have to think through this in some context.
There's a bit of sense checking. So I'm sure Kim and Michael, you've done something previously, but we're undergoing a bit of a fit up spec guideline document. So we're sort of highlighting the vehicles that we get, what fleet will pay for, what you can get that fleet will pay for, but you have to ask for it. And then anything beyond that would be something for the team to pay for, just so, it's specific to their needs, not across the board. But for us, that's hopefully going to put some accountability financially, because our budget's not infinite. But it also, like you said, Kim, it just stops people getting everything that they want on the vehicle when they don't really need it, because it's not their vehicle and it's not their budget, and they'll just put it on the like to have list. So that'd be interesting to see how that works as well.
And Michael, I remember you shared a story with me once, how you guys were using some space cab vehicles, and part of that thing, it was the same thing. It was the opportunity to cycle your workers through out in some extreme environments, but out hot or cold, and they can have a break in the vehicle to really rest up and actually recharge, keep fresh through the day. How did you sort of arrive at that sort of creative thinking?
Jerome, it actually ties into something else when we look at, from a fleet management perspective, you look at those bits where you think that there's some waste, and we look at idle time. And idle time, unfortunately, in every organisation that I've come across, is a big red flag. Why is there so much idle time? To put some context around it, if you're, again, working outdoors, whether it's 40 degrees plus or, down in some of Nick's areas, in the minuses, that vehicle is running for most times for a purpose. It's either to keep the inside warm or cold, so the driver can have that break out of the weather. Again, it comes back to that looking after the driver across their well-being. And the story was, yeah, exactly out in the Central West area. Teams are in, some pretty horrid conditions, a fairly big day, and to rotate them all to keep themselves, at their best, absolutely. A drink of water, hop in the cab for 5 or 10 minutes, cools down that core temperature. The work still stays. They're still still productive, but they're also happy and healthy and fit, which means they do a better job and more aware of those surroundings. So as a risk mitigation, it may sound funny, it may sound weird to have that conversation that, we have some workers that cycle through a vehicle to get themselves cool. You might think, well, that's all well and good until you put yourself in their shoes. I think that's the important part that we miss most often. We don't put ourselves in someone else's shoes. So to go and experience it and see how that works, it was great. And hopefully, some other teams certainly pick that practice up. And again, if it helps people be healthy, happy, when they hop back in that vehicle, back in that road safety lens, they're not fatigued, they're not dehydrated, mind wandering, daydreaming. They're focused on what they're doing, which is a great outcome.
Nice. Well, we'll move on to the second thing. I think it's really, I'm hearing a lot of stuff around that consultation. So from the horse's mouth, the power of driving consultation. So over to you, David. Drivers in your review were remarkably candid, including about gaming the monitoring system. What do you think created the psychological safety to speak openly, and what do you see as good practice for an organisation?
Yeah, okay. So firstly, everyone that attended came on the clear understanding that the organisation was doing this with their interests at heart. Nobody came cynically to this, and I think that really comes from the point of view that there was a good safety culture already in the organisation, that they'd clearly been leading by example for a while. And so they understood that this was not a checkbox ticking exercise, but it was coming from a genuine motivation to protect the workers. So everyone came from that point of view initially, and I think also it really helped that they brought someone external out to consult, because it gave people that, firstly, that sense that they could speak a bit more freely, but also that sense that no one was going to be too precious about any of the things that they may have trialed over the years, because there was someone external coming in with a fresh set of eyes that can completely evaluate everything, and they understood that they were open to this level of feedback. I should also give a shout out. I partnered with Haven Group in this process, and Ben Wood from that group facilitated the workshops and did an excellent job, which really, firstly, did a great job of putting everyone at ease, but also gave me that opportunity to kind of take a step back from the ongoing facilitation, just observe everything and observe any patterns so that I could jump in real time if need be to question everything as it came along. But yeah, I think that overall it was that safety culture that had been instilled for quite a while, and that understanding that any of that feedback that people were going to provide, whether it be positive or negative, was actually going to be used to lead to real change that was going to protect them and their co-workers as well.
So on that, like I'll go dive in with you, Nick, on this one. So do you undertake sort of formal driver consultation as part of your fleet safety reviews, and how do you do that in some of the isolated areas where your drivers are working out remote areas? I know people may find it bewildering that you might have remote areas in Tasmania, but the reality is some of your people may not come in that often.
Yeah, look, there's a few avenues. I mean, as I said before, the drivers aren't backwards and coming forward, so I think my mobile number is saved in quite a lot of people's phones, from what I gather. But we've got a fairly clear pattern of our incidents that we see each year, and obviously our involvement in the in your utilities forum, Jerome, is a key way of checking anything that we don't already know. But ADAS is definitely a hot topic. We've got the technology involved with that. That's a common theme. We've got third-party factors that are an issue. But we don't get too many surprises, which is good. So we don't proactively go out there and talk to people. They come to us. They're not afraid to, and we've got those checks, those records as far as incidents go to track how things are progressing or hopefully not getting worse.
Do you see similarly yourself, Kim?
Yes. So look, we've got a pretty robust safety reporting system here at SA Water. So, we're able to really capture a lot of really good data around incidents and hazards. We have pretty frequent engagement with the business as well too, to understand, look, are things working? Are they not? Are there areas that we need to turn to, or has something started to emerge that we might not be capturing well or doing well at the moment? And then really getting the subject matter experts involved to go, all right, why isn't it working? Let's dig into this, and what does that root cause look like for a solution? So, they are dealing with it day in and day out. So conditions can change, work environments can change, work requirements can change. So just because we've got a static vehicle that's always worked in that space, it might not anymore. So, it's keeping those lines of dialogue open and those check-ins to go, look, is it still working? Is it not? Do we need to readdress this, rather than just leaving it and assuming it's always good?
How easy is it to get honest opinions out of your workforce around how they're feeling, what's going on?
I think it can sometimes depend on who, how, and where. So, getting the guys, going out and seeing them at their work site, at their depots, at their environments, they're probably going to be a lot more forthcoming with information, or where they can see that they're just talking to you one-on-one or a small group to you directly. You can, when it is being filtered up through managers and the like, sometimes it can be an aggregate or a consolidation, not through intent, but you can lose that that individual driver experience when you start collating it. And, once you start going to big surveys and things like that, it is key to reassure the drivers is that, look, we want to do this for improvement. This isn't the intent to come back and discipline you on the back of it. We're generally seeking genuine feedback for improvement, not just for a tick box, not just for an exercise, but because that we've heard that there's a concern and we want to understand how we can address it.
Awesome. For you, Michael, what do you reckon? How do you, for large geographically dispersed organisation, how do you make consultation not be a tick and flick, tick the box process, and what you're hearing is really leading to change?
In that relationship, Jerome, and also the action that comes off the back of it. Feedback is only as good as what comes off the back of it. If you can demonstrate that I've listened, I've played it back, I understand, and now something different's going to happen, where possible. I think that's the piece, and it just takes time. It's all those little breadcrumbs, because ideally, just like anyone, you want to know that your voice is heard, and it's addressed. How that's addressed can look in many different ways. It may just be, hey, I recognise that that's a problem. We can't do anything about it, but we recognise and we acknowledge that it's a problem. When you look at, an example would be the conditions of the roads at the moment across all states. The roads aren't in the best condition and may never be in the best condition. What influence have we got over that? It's limited. It's not none. Absolutely, it's not none. We can absolutely lobby our local government to say, hey, we've got some roads that are in poor condition. That's probably the end of our influence. But to acknowledge it back to the driver and say, hey, we get that the roads are terrible. I see it every day. It's that acknowledgement can help right through to, hey, we've got yellow wheels, we want red wheels. Okay, cool. Here comes some red wheels if it stacks up. So I think it's around acknowledging it, building those relationships, and where something needs to be changed, change it, because ironically, the larger the organisation, the larger the spread, the easier the change becomes. You don't have to be everywhere. If the message is right in one area, that message will travel. The old grapevine that we sometimes forget exists can be used for good as well. So you can use that to your advantage. It's not, for me, it's not a disadvantage on how diverse the terrain is or how diverse the area that you serve is. You can certainly use it for the good. But for me, to come back to it, it's that relationship that people see, that things happen when something gets raised or something gets told, that you can actually see it change.
I think it's one of those functions in an organisation that you get good input and interest in anyway. I think fleet, people love their vehicles, they use them a lot every day. There's a going joke in house here that I don't have 2 people on my fleet team. I've got about 1,100 because everyone who drives one has their own thoughts and opinions, and that's fine and that's good because people are not afraid to speak up about anything regarding the vehicles, and we do take it all on board. So that's why we're not proactive, because it comes to us anyway. But it's a really invested sort of function in all areas, and I think people are quite have their own ownership of what they drive and how they drive.
Do you find certain people are they real big fans of certain vehicles that they love, and other ones like they won't touch? Or and do you see internal battles between groups saying I love that one, don't like that? Like it's like the old Ford Holden back in the day. Do you see those sort of things in your organisations?
It definitely exists, Jerome, and it exists in our own life. We've all got the things that we love, whether it be a pencil, a notepad, whatever it may be, a phone charger. We've all got those things that we're very that are a part of our identity, and vehicles are no different, to a much larger extreme. And 9 times out of 10, there's actually a reason why. It'll be the vehicle can't be serviced, or it's uncomfortable for me to drive, or there'll be something. It's just a matter of being able to ask the question instead of doing the wrong thing and okay, move on. Ask the question. You'd be surprised why someone likes one certain brand over another. And it may just have a little nugget of gold there that you can pick up, because if that person's feeling it, reality is someone else is feeling the same thing. And as fleet managers, they're all the bits of gold that build your integrity, that you actually listen. So someone likes a certain type of driving light or a certain type of car or body or whatever it may be, there'll be a reason for it. It won't just be because they like it. There'll be a reason, and it's interesting to understand that reason.
And it goes back to that original topic of having that right fleet in the first place, and having that versatility that people can choose between a Triton because it's more comfortable to travel in, or a Hilux, depending on what they do with it, as long as they've got the options. But I think there's that line of discretion for fleet to go, well, you've got this choice, but that's kind of it, rather than having it too open. But yeah, it's definitely important to provide those options.
I think the other key benefit, of a central fleet as well too, is that you can pick that information across the business. You may have one group that is continue facing the same issue that you can address and resolve, and then actually take that learning across the business. There can be groups that never have a conversation with each other and go, well, actually, we're seeing this in other groups, and you raise it with them and go, oh yeah, we've had a few of those, and going, okay, we can actually bring these shared learnings across and share this across the board. And that also really helps with, what Michael was talking about too, the why. Hey, we're making this change because we're seeing this in this group. This is why we're taking this action. And then most people going, oh, yep, cool, can see that. That makes sense. Or, okay, I understand this is a decision based off of either data or incident, and this is why we're making this change. So they might not have been anywhere near that data or that incident or heard anything about it, but they can understand it because they've seen it come from, within the industry and within the group.
It's back to that point that Michael made earlier as well. Like if you're doing that as well, you take that from them, the grapevine will help show feedback to that other group that you actually heard, you've listened, you've acted it, and you've taken it forward, which would make them feel pretty chuffed as well.
It does.
Nice. Well, move on to theme 3, reading the form guide. So telematics, apps, and technology in practice. So David, you recommend OBD2 based telematics, so smartphone based apps for some context. Can you walk us through the trade-offs organizations need to weigh when choosing, I guess, a form of driver safety system?
Yeah. So the organization did have a phone-based app, and I think telematics used to essentially gamify safer driving. What they were doing is fantastic. It's been done for a really long time in the US and the UK. It's really been proven to be effective. and I think it's taken a little bit longer to take off in Australia, but I'm really pleased to see that it actually is gaining traction now. But the issue that we were finding when we were running the workshops is some of the frustrations that people had with the smartphone-based app. Like, for example, some vehicles had wireless charging, and if they would go over a speed bump or a bit of rough surface, it would essentially, the phone would move a little bit and it would trigger the screen to light up, and that would essentially count towards their overall score. And sometimes they had complaints that they had to brake harshly and it didn't get picked up by the app, whereas sometimes they were having a perfectly normal run and for some reason harsh braking was picked up. So the issue with the smartphone app is it's just not 100% reliable, and that reduces the trust in the overall system. So like me, the people I consulted with were really supportive of the idea of telematics-based gamifying of safer driving and getting that actual driver score, but they wanted to have some trust that what they were seeing was actually representative of what they were doing, and they weren't feeling that. Now, the smartphone app one has the benefit that it sees if there's been phone use, but even that, the level of phone use, I had a bit of a discussion about how much of a significant impact that is, depending on the urban, regional, and rural environment. And at the end of the day, it's not really the phone use, it's what you miss through the phone use, through that cognitive distraction. So at the end of the day, it is that heavy braking or heavy swerving that would be picked up by the telematics. So it's really the indicator of if somebody is not appropriately responding to a hazard, which can happen if you've been distracted in some way. So essentially, the onboard diagnostics is a far more reliable way, plugging the telematics software straight into the vehicle itself to pick up on any heavy braking, any harsh acceleration, any swerving. It's going to be far more reliable. It's going to be much harder for people to bypass or trick the system in any way. And it's going to have that trust from the end users that their scores were actually indicative of their actual driving. So yeah, just much better buy-in from the end user that way.
I guess, Michael, going across to you, like you're working, I guess, at a cutting edge AI, like you're right out there working with Fleet Guru sitting there. So what do you see as some of the most common mistakes organizations make when they're rolling out these sort of, I guess, vehicle safety technology programs?
There's a couple that stand out, Jerome. One is we see organizations doing a whole lot of work in the early stages, as they should, to understand exactly what they want to achieve. So they've got some really clear guidelines on here's exactly what we want to achieve. And then they go and install a system that won't do that. And they end up spending lots of time then working for the system to try and get the result they wanted, somewhere down the track. And then we have the conversations that David alluded to around integrity in the system, how does it work, the functionality. The system needs to work for you, not the other way around. So it's really, reverse engineering that. So yes, understand your needs, and then go to market and find the vendors that can do something similar, test it, trial it, make sure it works. That's the, for me, I see that as one of the bigger mistakes. Interesting, David, the software that works through your phone. So from a road safety perspective, we know that phones are the biggest distraction. So we want drivers to improve their driver behavior by not looking at phones, yet we put a driver behavior app on a phone. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like it sort of does my brain in at times, that type of thinking. So I certainly agree that it should be in the vehicle with no other distractions, no screens, no bells, no buzzers. The driver's got enough to worry about. That report can come later and give that driver the opportunity to self-correct. It's important that the driver of the vehicle gets the information that the vehicle generates, because they can, people like to self-correct. People are data hungry. The other thing I see, Jerome, a failure there, organisation will put a system in and then think the system's going to do all the work. And that's just not true. The system is critical to the operation. It has to be a good system. It has to be a good system backed by good people who own the system. That's that support. But the system won't do the work. The system comes from people being constantly talking about improving behaviour, reducing speeding incidents, reducing fatigue, improving road safety, ensuring those people on the roads are safe at all times. The system won't do that. So it's a combination of the people. So they're the probably the three things that I see, Jerome. The wrong system in the first place, and you think the system's going to do the work for you, not the other way around. So they're the three things that I see.
It's really just a tool, isn't it?
It's a tool, and yes, it's important. It has to be the right tool.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. But the tool's got to be able to do what you want it to do, not the other way around. And then it's upkeep. It's like everything else. It's like maintaining the car. You've got to maintain the system, and the system's got to do a fair bit of that itself. So I think it's that combination of those three factors, Jerome. So it's a tool, but the people own it.
So Kim, over to you, mate. Like, where's SA Water sitting with it? Do you do gamification? Do you have an app, perhaps, or where are you guys sitting?
So, funnily enough, it's something that we're actually looking at the moment on what we need out of our system, because with any system, it's the right tool, but it's also making sure that the priorities are being met for both sides of the coin. So, management are going to be looking at it from one point of view, the drivers are going to be looking at it from another. Why do I need this? How hard is it to use? And what's it doing for me? So, for the drivers, having their buy-in to make it easy to want to use it and actually see the benefit of it is a massive driver, because you can have the best system in the world, but if there's no uptake or there's pushback against it, it's always going to be a hard sell. And I also think that in these spaces too, it's being clear about, as we get into the gamification space, is what does the good mean and what does the bad mean? If I'm getting a really good score, does that mean anything? Or if I'm getting a really bad score, what does that mean? And being clear, all the way from the driver up to, the top level of management of going, what happens? What are we doing with this and what's coming about it? Because similar to what Dave was talking about, those false positives, if I'm the driver, I want to understand, hey, can I go, look, I went down a bouncy dirt road and my phone kept pinging, but you were actually doing the right thing. This was just a system picking it up. Well, how do I make sure that that's not actually detrimental to me in the long run, and how does that play out? So yeah, I think it's being very clear about both sides of what's the system, what's the outcome, but what does it mean for me? And that me is, am I the driver? Am I the manager, the supervisor, or am I the safety team who may be seeing all these results come through? So yeah, it's making sure it's robust and everyone's across where they sit in this whole process.
We have one question in thus far, so I'll come to that soon. So hopefully we get a few more through. But what's your thoughts, Nick, around the connectivity? Like, is that an issue? Like, if you're in remote areas, there's not the coverage. Is that a concern for you guys?
Yeah, it is. So our current supplier has both 4 or 5G plus. So it's not perfect in all areas, but it's definitely better than just 4G. We've also got a supplementary radio system through the Tasmanian government, obviously, that we can rely on as well to supplement that sometimes where the tracker isn't possible. But look, definitely it's hard to get coverage everywhere, but we've got systems, processes to make sure the drivers are covered where they know that there's no range and people know where the black spots are if they do it every day, every week. And I think what you the calibration, I guess, a phone is very, very different from a hardwired device, but we've even got our own challenges with device calibration on potholes or corrugations, or even, riding over a curb. So it's amazing, these systems that are designed to pick up on a bit of tremor, but they create a lot of work and a lot of I guess false alarms and maybe ruin a bit of trust with the team leaders that this driver is supposedly having a high impact event quite often, but it's just normal road conditions. So it's hard to get that fine line between actually your system working well and being relied upon to actually just causing a little bit more concern and work for everyone as well. To get everyone else's thoughts as well, if that's a common theme.
And that's what I thought, that when you use the word trust, all of a sudden I saw Michael and Kim both nodding on that one point.
100% that as soon as that data starts coming in and people start questioning it, it's that recourse and that integrity to look into what's the why. Because if the system keeps going off just for normal events, well, you're going, all right, well, we're just going to start ignoring these. And then when it does become an actual event, well, how much trust do you actually have in what actually happens? So yeah, the robustness and the trust in the system is massive.
Yeah, and it comes back to demonstrating that, Jerome, and we've quickly veered back to telematics, which is okay, because it certainly is a great tool and it's very, very widely used. It's around being able to demonstrate that where a error was seen or found, that something's been done about it. Has that just been fixed for that occasion? Has it been fixed for every occasion that has happened in the past? Is there a cup half full perspective on it? I've heard a story in the last 2 or 3 days, a solution out there that takes 2 or 3 months to update a speed zone. If you know that going into it, you're already well off path. The tech where it is at the moment and moving forward, it needs to be updated overnight. So the next day, the data's clean, the mistake's done. You've been able to go back to the driver, the operator, and say, hey, we've fixed that. You'll see it in the system. We've removed that, whatever that done to your score or whatever happened. And we've also removed it, all through history, and now everyone benefits from it. So, that's where we need to be, from a tech perspective. But it's just that demonstrating that, hey, something can be done. Something can be done. It's not just that's just the way it is. That's the absolute wrong answer. So, and there's plenty of systems out there that do it. Back to my earlier point, it's a matter of testing and trialing them all and finding one that you're comfortable with and answers all those questions that you have.
I've got a good question here, a couple of questions I'll grab on this topic. So how does your IVMS systems affect your vehicle battery use?
Negative.
I'm happy to start that off. Oh, sorry, Michael. That's all right.
Oh, yeah, no, cool. It certainly, because it's drawing power, it has an effect on the battery, whether you like it or not. And there's a couple of things that you can do about that. First thing you can do is understand what that battery draw is. How much is that draw? Does the system go to sleep over a certain period of time that reduces that draw even further? How long will that battery last? An average battery lasts if the vehicle wasn't started, because yes, we all like vehicles to be used every day, but the reality is there's going to be periods where the vehicle may not get used for 3 or 4 days. The last thing we need is a vehicle to have a flat battery. So what is that time frame that we've got before the vehicle won't start? And then we need to mitigate that risk. Is it a voltage regulator? Is it a system software update where it does go to sleep? So it absolutely does draw some things off the battery. It's around understanding that. And then, of course, there'll be some complexities with satellite modems and bits and pieces as well. So the answer is, yes, it does draw on the battery. Like anything that draws on the battery, we need to understand what the impact is. A two-way radio, a microwave, a Cell-Fi Go unit that boosts your 4G signal will all draw down that battery. So the poor battery's got a pretty sad job in life. That all it does is get drawn out, not charged up again too much by the alternator. But what can we do to mitigate the risk to ensure that we're providing a high level of protection for the driver around if something goes wrong and there's a panic button that we can respond, or we can provide that metrics through to the driver to improve their driver behavior. That's why the system's in the vehicle. We need to make sure that it works the whole time, but it certainly will have an impact on your battery. It's a matter of understanding what that impact is.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the process, as you said, Michael, with when you're preparing to get a system, how that will work and whether it's a constant ping or it's based on vehicle emission and movement. but we've got isolator switches in some vehicles that we know aren't used as much as others should be, particularly the trucks that seems to navigate around that pretty easily. And obviously, I think most systems should have a battery, what we call a battery health sort of monitor as well. We can sort of check if batteries are sort of suffering, whether that's from the truck or otherwise. But there's ways around it.
I think also on that too is communicating if it's an anomaly or not. Hey, this is what we expect, but if it's outside of these, let us know. So that way the drivers then aren't going, look, it lasts X amount of times and it goes flat. That's just normal. Well, actually, is that normal? And then also communicating along with that is, hey, here's the recourse. Here's the steps to take if it is or if it isn't, and either how to get it fixed, how to isolate it, or is something amiss that actually needs to be attended to. So I think it's just that holistic piece of not just put it in and hope for the best. Actually, hey, think about the end to end.
So, told you ask a question like this, these experts, you get some great answers there, different sort of views on it as well. So this next one's also a hot topic. I think everyone's going to be drawing on this one. So how do you go with drivers and complaints of extending the system to add fatigue front-facing cameras?
Jerome, I'll take the question. Can you just rephrase it, please?
Sure. How do you go with drivers and complaints in regards to extending the system to add in fatigue front-facing cameras? So I guess it's how you overcome that barrier to all of a sudden you're bringing the cameras into the system, and it's, I guess, those things. Are you intruding on my my environment, my workplace? Are you going above and beyond? Where's the sensitivities of those?
Yeah, sensitivity is the right word, Jerome, and it's something that a lot of organisations are facing, and they're dealing with it through a couple of different channels. First one would be the vehicle as a workplace, but that's not the green light to do it. I think the comfortable space is the forward-facing camera first off, and again, the reason why we're doing that, we want to put some protection around the driver. One of Kim's drivers with one of his vac trucks drives on someone's driveway and cracks the concrete. There may be some footage there to show that someone was, guiding him on or her on, whichever may be. So there's really some good protection from forward facing. Similar to telematics, what we find is a lot of the time when there's a complaint raised, you can actually use that footage for good. It's, hey, we actually weren't there. Similar to telematics, hey, one of your vehicles was doing something in an area. You can use that data to show, hey, what, either wasn't us, we weren't there, or hey, yes, we were there, but here's some footage or here's some data to show that we're actually in the right. So unfortunately, bigger fleets seem to get pinned with lots of things because they're very visible. So if something goes wrong, it was someone else's fault. So to go back to the sensitivity part, the forward-facing cameras, definitely provides a level of protection for the driver and the organisation and for other road users. Internally gets a little bit more sensitivity because you're right, it's inside that workplace. There's some technology out there at the moment, they call it lens as a sensor. So the lens is inside the vehicle. It's providing all the AI insights on driver monitoring, so fatigue and distraction, but it's not recording. So I think, that for me, that is a nice fit right now to provide that level of protection back to the driver to say, hey, we're just going to keep an eye on things to make sure you're okay, distraction, fatigue, but there's nothing recording. It's not going anywhere. I think about who is the most important person that needs to know the driver is fatigued. It's not a trick question. It's the driver. The driver needs to know. There's no point someone else knowing external to the truck. It's the driver needs to know. So if that information's only coming to the driver, I think that's a really nice fit. Recording, I've seen some, particularly towing companies, heavy haulage companies use internal cameras. And again, a lot of it is around that protection for the driver where they've got an authorization from a person on the side of the road to tow the car or to pick up the loader or whatever it may be. There'll always be a negative aspect. I think we always need to come back to why we're doing this and go back to what Kim said. What happens? What happens with that? If someone is fatigued, what happens? What happens is we want them to be awake. We want to help them not be fatigued. That's what we want to happen. So there's a couple of different lenses across that, Jerome, pardon the pun, lenses and cameras. For me, it's all, I'm always a cup half full person. I see some real benefits. I see a world where whether it be utilities, big fleets have lots of external cameras and internal cameras on their vehicles that in the event something goes wrong in a local area, unfortunately we see some things happen in society that isn't nice. Maybe we can use that footage, maybe the authorities can use that footage to say, well, at this point in time, we saw that vehicle, we've got a number plate, we can apprehend that person for whatever that may have been. So that's where I see the world heading with these cameras. It might be too far out there, but I certainly see that good that will come from them. And also the road safety aspect, if we can give that driver the information that, hey, you're distracted, get your eyes back on the road. Hey, you're fatigued, take a break. I think only good can come from it.
And look, Michael's spot on there. And coming back to an earlier point he also made too, it's the grapevine. Be clear, be open about how, when, all of this sort of stuff is going to get used, how it's going to get used, when it's going to get used, because the grapevine can be massively detrimental. Someone goes, oh, they put a camera in and now they're just spying. No, guys, this is how we're using it. This is when we're using it. This is why we're using it. This is when we won't use it. Be clear, be upfront. It's all that information that with anything that you're bringing into these spaces, be it IVMS, cameras, anything like that, have it all outlined, have it written down, have it in the policy. So that way, as it's being brought in, everyone, again, from the drivers to managers, know how and when we're using this sort of stuff. So that way they've got that level of assurance of no, look, it isn't being used to spy on. We're only looking at it post-incident. It's only being looked at, from a reporting point of view when you guys go, hey, something happened, can I, report this through, sort of thing. So yeah, it's being clear and open about it, because those whispers can be massively detrimental.
And let's face it, no one's got time to sit there and watch people's dash cams live anyway, do you really? But if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about. I think the challenge for cameras with us is, definitely, Michael, the front-facing cameras make sense for an incident that might not have been our liability. The rear-facing or the driver-facing cameras are not just a driver privacy issue, but also a legal thing that we're probably going to work through as well, when it comes back to what you said, Kim, about only reviewing the data when we really need to, and not proactively looking at it. But there's a bit in it. But I like the idea of those sensor versions rather than actual recordings. It seems like that's a good middle ground.
Thanks for that, guys. And look, we didn't even get to the last theme because there was so much good discussion going on. I know it was a bit brave from my side. So as we're coming up towards the end of our session now, and sorry we didn't get to all those questions as well that came through. I do apologise. But what I'd like to do is just sort of close out. Just give each you sort of like 45 seconds. What is your take-home message you'd like to leave with everyone? What would you like to sort of share, put out to the group, so everyone sort of knows, but what we've been discussing, what would you like to leave everyone with? So I'll finish off with you, David, but I'll because you started this sort of journey for us all, and I'll start with you, Kim.
You don't know what you don't know, so ask. Consult. You can't be everywhere at once and have all the information. So rely on the SMEs. You've got people across the business who see this day in, day out. Use them.
Nice. Michael.
I've got two key takeaways. The first one is always look after yourself. Being a fleet manager or being involved in fleet isn't the easiest career choice. It's tough. There's a reason, and there's a reason why it's a special breed of people, and they work because they've got good peer networks. So look after yourself. I love to always say you can't change the tires while you're driving the car. So why is it the first thing we forget to service is ourselves? So look after yourself, healthy, happy, take a break, eat well, sleep well. There's some really cool apps out there that help you do all of that. And secondly, what we're seeing is organizations that are actively preparing their data for AI are the organizations that are seeing the very early benefits on cost reduction, efficiencies, and insights into how to manage their fleets really well. So start to prepare what that looks like, your data, how you're going to feed into the AI tools to get the most amount of benefit from those tools.
Nice. Thanks for that, Michael. Nick?
To come after those two, but I'm going to match Michael and say two. First one for me is talk to your colleagues, talk to other industry fleet managers, whatever your business is. But we obviously do that within the Utilities Forum through the NRSPP, but also among AFMA, that's obviously promoted as well. And the second thing is I had someone come to me the other day and see if we can start purchasing vehicles that don't have any lane assist technology, all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, that's here. It's not going anywhere. We just need to work out how to use it. So I think just embrace it for now until it adapts, and it's not going anywhere.
Thanks, Nick. And I must admit, 3 great statements. So, David, you get to close out after those 3 big calls.
Yeah, well, 100% agree with everything that was said. But look, my take-home message is road trauma is the greatest contribution to OH&S claims. I think it's about half of all OH&S fatalities occur on the road. And this is talking about the workers. It's not even talking about the other road users that are interacting with those workers. So there's a big chunk of road trauma that can be addressed with the right fleet decisions that are being made and with the right safety culture being instituted in those drivers. So yeah, make those right decisions in purchasing and be open in communicating with your drivers to really effectuate a safer road system for everyone.
Thank you very much, Dave, for kicking this off, and for you guys coming and give us time. Thank you to our audience today. What I am going to ask each of our panelists is I'll get the questions that we missed, and I'll see if we can just get a few little dot points to add them in. And when we circulate the recording, we'll try and answer them as well. So thank you all very much. Enjoy your rest of your day, and look forward to chatting to you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.